First off, my question for you is this. Is this a good La Liga title race or a bad one? Real Madrid underperforming, Barca now missing their two best attackers, Atleti being Atleti, all over the place. Not even in the conversation right now, honestly, Atleti. I mean, whatever you think. The title race has certainly changed now with the injury to Lamine Yamal, which adds to the injury of Raphinha already. And unfortunately for Barcelona supporters, neutrals, anyone who likes to watch insanely talented footballers work their magic on the pitch, you could see this coming from a mile away. It was absolutely inevitable. Guys, I may do more videos like this, just sort of quick news reaction type videos that come out a bit more frequently. May combine even a few topics within one, sort of a weekend recap light type thing. Who's interested in that? So anyway, if you missed it or you missed the title of the video, Lamine Yamal's season is over, unfortunately, though he hopes to be back and ready for the World Cup. But as the title says, this was inevitable. This was expected, not hoped for, but an injury like this is surprising nobody when you look at just how much football Lamine Yamal has played in his career already at just 18 years old. This season, Lamine Yamal has played more minutes than anyone else in Barcelona's squad. And yes, that is including goalkeepers as well, as you often have to make that distinction. Oh, you mean amongst outfield players? No, in this case, he's played more minutes than every single person within Barcelona's squad for a total of already 3,702 minutes. Then there was the two friendlies for Spain in March. Yes, friendlies, where he played an additional 108 minutes, and he took part in two qualifiers in September, playing a total of 152 minutes. When he had a couple of injuries in October and November, he didn't play for Spain. But still, in total for club and country just this season, Lamine Yamal has played a total of 3,962 minutes. That's a lot so far. Let's look at last season as well, the 24-25 campaign. 17-year-old Yamal played 4,553 minutes for Barcelona, 606 for Spain, that's 5,159 minutes. For a guy who had played a decently long season for Barcelona prior, he wasn't a guaranteed starter in 23-24, so only 2,957 for a 16-year-old, and then played every game in Euro 24, so 508 minutes there. 180 minutes in friendlies prior to the tournament as well, for a total of 3,645 minutes during the 23-24 season. Add all of those together, and you have about 12,766 minutes of football across just 3-ish seasons for a guy who is still growing and who still hasn't even turned 19 yet. That's insane. That's an average of 4,255 minutes per season of the highest caliber football you can play, playing under a coach as well in Hansi Flick, who requires his players to press and run a lot. We saw earlier in the season that Barcelona and Spain both feel entitled to Lamine. It's the never-ending chicken and the egg style debate, right? There are some who say that the national team coach, Luis de la Fuente, in this instance, should see how much Lamine has played and not call him up for international breaks. And that the club is entitled to play him as much as they like without considering their national team because they ultimately pay Lamine Yamal's wages. Others think that the club should regulate minutes more often, which would, in an indirect way, negate the additional strain taken from going on international duty, kind of. I don't know. I think it's everyone's responsibility and ultimately kind of too bad for the national team if the player is in need of rest and there are unimportant or easy matches that are being played in that given window. Because we saw what an unimportant match did to Gavi, right? Spain were playing against Georgia and he sustained a complete tear of his ACL, as well as injury to the lateral meniscus in a match where Spain had actually already qualified for Euro 2024. This one wasn't so much down to being overplayed, however. ACL injuries typically aren't due to fatigue or overplaying unless you have a pre-existing hamstring issue, which Gavi did not have. So that injury is more just frustrating due to it being in a meaningless match more than anything. However, Lamine Yamal's teammate, Pedri, and Gavi's teammate too, remember when he looked like his soul had been beaten out of him at the Olympic Games in 2021 for Spain, when he went there straight after playing in Euro 2020 and 21, and played a total of 73 matches that season for club and country. Whew. Well, ever since then, Pedri has had hamstring issues, which is the most common injury amongst football players who have been overplayed. Well, it's one of the most common injuries in general due to its links to acceleration, deceleration, sprinting, everything that a football player has to do. Pedri hadn't had an injury up to that point, at least not one that shows up on Transfermarkt, which isn't a perfect source for this, but it gives a great idea of what's going on with a player's transfer history. Injury history and transfer history. It does both. Once you tear that hamstring once, you can expect to re-injure it over and over again. That muscle will never be the same due to the scar tissue that it will now have built up. Tear that again, then build more scar tissue on top of scar tissue, weakening it more. We've also seen that with Alphonso Davies this season. He returned from an ACL injury, and he's already been sidelined twice with hamstring tears. So they need to be really, really careful with the rehab of Lamine Yamal's injury, especially since it is the biceps femoris, the same injury Pedri had, as this muscle in the leg actually has a tendon running through the middle of it. So any partial tear here needs extra attention and sometimes requires surgery to fix it. Based on the multiple sources I've checked, the hamstring is one of the most common injuries and one of the first muscles to suffer damage due to the athletes being overplayed. So, as I said already, right, there isn't a big surprise here that Yamal has suffered this injury given the minutes he's played in his career. That has frustrated some supporters who have wanted Flick to give other players minutes, such as Rooney Bargi, for example, in order to give Yamal a break now and then. But as mentioned, he is the most played player of the entire FC Barcelona squad, and now he and they are paying the price for that. Now, if the initial expectation is that Yamal will be available for the World Cup, I would assume that his tear is somewhere between a grade 1 and a grade 2, the 4 to 6 week rehabilitation time frame. And he's not the only one this week. You also had Esteban of Chelsea suffering a grade 4 hamstring tear, the worst of the worst. So he will miss the World Cup and more. But within La Liga, Real Madrid lost 2 players with the same injury as Lamine Yamal. Arda Güler and Eder Militão both injured their biceps femoris. Look, I don't mean to be Mr. Doom and Gloom here, but this is a reality that you need to get comfortable with because it could, hopefully not, let me say loud and clear, hopefully not, but it could become a regular occurrence with Lamine Yamal. But the doom and gloom I'm referring to, Militão is another example of someone like Alphonso Davies who has had 2 injuries to the biceps femoris this season alone. Pedri, another one. Hamstring injuries in October and January of this season, each sidelining him for a month. So it sucks. It sucks that we could all see this coming from a mile away, but you always hope that a player has, as special as Lamine Yamal will be one of those freaks of nature that just doesn't pick up many injuries. Let's hope that this doesn't become a regular occurrence in his career because that would be a huge, huge shame. But it does kind of beg the question, and this feels almost inappropriate after talking about injuries, but it does beg the question of what this does for the La Liga title race. Real Madrid have lost 2 players as they are suffering greatly from a lack of bodies when it comes to the center back position. With Asensio and Militão out, all you have is Rudiger, Alaba, and Huysen. That's 1 spare for 2 positions. However, I think that I saw that Raul Asensio is back in training, but still, they're light at the back. Militão is constantly injured. They need someone back there. Barcelona, on the other hand, will now be without 2 important players, 2 of their most important players, I should say, in Raphinha and Lamine Yamal. Massive, massive blows, not just to their attack, but to their press as well. And what happens when their press is off? They concede more and more goals. 6 of Barcelona's 8 losses this season have been when Raphinha hasn't been on the pitch, when he hasn't been part of their press, and they have suffered because of it. Now you take Yamal's heroics, offensive heroics out of the equation. That's complicated for them. Still a talented side, of course, but that's very complicated. And Raphinha is expected back, they are hoping, for El Clasico on May 12th. And oh, by the way, this is absolutely a 2-horse race. Atleti are in 4th at the moment, way behind as they have been chaotic. Shout out Villarreal, who have been a very, very good La Liga side, despite being one of the most putrid Champions League sides this season. They were terrible in that competition. So the remaining fixtures, FC Barcelona will play at Getafe, at Osasuna, at home against Real Madrid, away to Alaves, at home against Betis, and away to Valencia. Real Madrid play away to Betis, Espanyol, and Barcelona, at home against Oviedo, away to Sevilla, and at home against Athletic Club. Barcelona play against 4 teams in the top 10. Real Madrid play against 3 teams in the top 10. So the lazy analysis says that they have the easier run of matches, but Barcelona still have a 9-point lead. Even with their injuries in the attack, I think Barcelona come out as champions. Raphinha, in theory, will return for the final 4 matches of the season and lead them to victory. I mean, even without that, a 9-point lead is quite the lead. And this Real Madrid side can't be trusted to win every single match anyway. But anyways, guys, let me know all of your thoughts, all of your frustrations with these injuries, and who's winning this league, man. Be well. Peace.